Dear friends, if I ask you a question, please explain Archimedes' principle. How many will explain with confidence? How many of you will look around? Now, if I ask you the Newton's law of motion, first law of motion, second law of motion, third law of motion, how many of you can confidently speak about Newton's laws of motion? Maybe few. But then, if I ask you, please tell me a story about thirsty co. How many will tell me confidently? I think most of you. If I ask you to recite a story of hare and tortoise, I'm sure most of you. If I ask you to recite story of capseller and monkey, I'm sure most of you. So why is it so? There can be a situation where you landed in, you would have read Archimedes' principle, Newton's law of motion, sure. But then today we are unable to remember it. We have rehearsed it. We have mugged it. Probably we have memorized it. Probably we have written through the cheats so that we can memorize this Archimedes' principles, Newton's laws of motion. But today, with spontaneity, we can't reveal. But then, we can reveal easily these stories. So, message is very clear that stories are close to our heart and it comes with spontaneity. Now, what will be the fun if the subject is backed up by the story? Before we take it for discussion, let us look around what myth people are carrying about story. Myth number 1. People generally associate stories with children. There is no doubt that children love stories. There are children who would not sleep if stories are not told before they sleep. But then, stories are also consumed by adults. I'm sure you will agree with me. Adults consume stories in different manner. They consume stories through news. They may be consuming story through video games. They may be consuming story through conversations. They may be consuming stories or relating with the stories with the real events happening around. So that is the first myth. Second myth is people believe that stories is about falsehood, but then stories about the real stories with a message. Who doesn't know the story of birth of Krishna? Who doesn't know the story of how Lord Rama conquered Lanka and won over Ravana? So these are the stories which are very close to us. Let us move ahead. Who doesn't know the story of Indian freedom struggle? I mean, the contribution of Lokmanya Tilak, contribution of Veer Savarkar, contribution of Mahatma Gandhi, contribution of Bhimrao Ambedkar, the struggles that they went through and the contribution they have made so that we can live with pride and our country attains independence. Who doesn't know the story of Sardar Patel? Who doesn't know? Now let us come to the business. Who doesn't know the story of rags to rich. There are several examples. Examples like Dhirubhai Ambani, how he was a petrol attendant at one point of time, but then he had a dream to have a refinery and he attained that dream. Who doesn't know the story of our beloved President of India, APJ Abdul Kalam, who didn't have the resources when he was young, but then he had a dream when he saw birds flying and he became a missile man. So we have learned, we are close to these stories about Karsanbhai Patel, about a person who was selling his detergents on bicycle on the streets of Ahmedabad, and he had a dream and he gave a challenge to a mighty empire of Hindustan Unilever at that point of time, and could also attain at one point of time a higher market share than Hindustan Unilever. There are stories. Business is about stories. So it's not about the falsehood, it's about the stories. Third thing, or the third myth that we carry, is that story is about entertainment. There is no doubt, if you tell the story with entertainment, people will easily remember it. That will go close to their minds, close to their heart. So stories are wisdom or with a message, but they are also backed up by the entertainment. So there can be a story, for example, which the people can draw from a movie about a person in US, but then he decides that he will come back to India. Now this story, maybe you may consider that movie is about entertainment, but just imagine any person who goes to a movie to watch this movie in United States of America, and he gets this realization and he comes back to India and serves the country. And this is not a fiction. This has happened in reality. Now let me tell you and narrate a story. Okay? There is a child, a kid. His name is Amit, and he's staying in a sweet home where he has father, mother, brothers, sisters, and he has a very happy family, right? Now he stays in a village, and just across the village, at the end of the village, there starts a jungle. And the jungle is very dense. It's so dense, people know about the stories about the jungle, that jungle is occupied by ferocious animals. Since people or the villagers know this, so they do not venture out into the jungle. But then this child named Amit, in a fit of his anger, decides that he will venture into the jungle. And on one day, he ventures into the jungle and he puts his foot into the jungle. As he goes into the jungle becomes dense and dense because he is surrounded by animals, he is surrounded by birds which were ferocious. The story ends here. Now, I have told you this story. Now, this story everybody of you would imagine in a different manner. Some of you will imagine different animals, different kind of jungles, different trees in a jungle. You will visualize a kid named Amit. That's what is going to happen. And this is the power of story. So, in business or in marketing class, we can really make a difference if we relate the case studies that we learn in marketing with stories. So there can be a story of Puma entering in India, and Puma, as you are aware, is headed by, say, for Abhishek Ganguly. And who is Abhishek Ganguly? Abhishek Ganguly is born in Bhagalpur. It's a small town. It's a town in Bihar. But it's not a so prosperous town. But then he had a dream to make a difference. But he doesn't do any graduation from Indian Institute of Technology, but graduation from a local college in Bhagalpur. But then he makes up his mind that now for post-graduation he will do something great. And he lands up in Indian Institute of Management in Lucknow. He joins Indian Institute of Management, but he is not a kind of a top ranker. And it so happens that destiny lands him to take care of Puma. Now when he takes over Puma, at that point of time, the brand Puma, although it is a very well-known, it has emerged from Germany in other countries, as it is available in about 120 countries. It has a presence in 120 countries. But then it has a limited presence in India. Initially, Puma starts with a kind of a partnership or an alliance with Carona, but somehow it didn't success. It doesn't achieve a success, and the partnership is broken. So now the onus is on this gentleman, that is Abhishek Ganguly, to carry forward the journey of Puma. But then this person, this gentleman, this top management person follows certain common sense. Common sense like, for example, if there is a street, that street will not be crowded by Puma stores. It's a simple logic. If there are more than 2 or 3 Puma stores on a single street, what's going to happen? There will be a competition, intense competition among the Puma stores. As a result, Puma cannot achieve what they desire to. Okay? And so he makes up his mind that on a street, maybe there will be a few Puma stores, so that 2 stores of Puma do not compete with each other. If Puma has to compete, it can compete with Adidas, it can compete with Reebok, it can compete with Nike. Second decision, that the sales and the rent has to be related. So if there is a rent place where the rent is higher, it is expected that sales also will be higher, and sales should be such that revenue should be such that it should be much more than the rent which is paid. That is thumb rule number 2, which was followed. Third thumb rule which was followed was in terms of the advertisement or communication expenditure. So you do expenditure where it is needed. It is not like for what others are doing, you are following it. No, this is not the way you are doing the business. You feel that it is justified, and then only you pour money so that you get the business results. There is much more into this case, because this case is about a Puma into the sportswear market. So how the sportswear market is built up in terms of the revenues, in terms of the growth potential of sportswear, what exactly is the product mix under the sportswear, what is the price range under the sportswear, right? And what is the campaign by Puma? So campaign by Puma is forever faster. And when you say that your campaign is forever faster, then it has to be backed up by the reasons to believe, by the supports. So that means that you are going to come out with the products which are much faster than what your competitors do. And if you have this mindset, then it also, your processes also needs to be aligned with this mindset. So this is what the Puma did, and it achieved the objective that it set for it set for Puma. Fine. So this is the power of story. So any case study, I will say, you try to relate with the story. Any figures, you try to compare. And the comparison can be, for example, if it is a total revenue of Puma or total market size of Puma, of sportswear market, you try to look around how many number of individuals, that is how many number of persons in India, and try to divide the total sportswear market in rupees crore by number of people. You will get that, okay, in a year this is what is spent. So this is how you need to relate. You need to visualize the data. So there can be also be a aspect of storytelling around the data, which we need to discover, which we need to make it meaningful so that we can enjoy the subject. Thank you very much.